So now what we're about to go over, I'm embarrassed to even have to teach because it just shows how primitive our sport is as a whole. But nonetheless, people are going to do this to you, and people actually do it in high-level competition. Like if you watch my match against Mateus Denise, Roberto Jimenez, they both tried this escape multiple times. Basically where someone just takes their hands anywhere from your hips to your chest, pushes as hard as they can, bridges to one side, and tries to roll you over. It can actually be an issue if provided the guy's like big and explosive and strong and has decent timing. But very easy to counter as well because it's just so untactical, number one, and inefficient, number two. So she's going to be down on the floor. We're going to be in a situation where we have a mount and no upper body inside position. What happens is someone bridges you forward, puts their hands on your chest, or your stomach, and they just bridge to one side, and they start to get you moving out to one direction like so. Now your feet are separated, and now they scoot away to separate your legs, and then usually what ends up happening is they won't even enter to your legs because most people doing this escape aren't very good, and then they roll on top of you, okay? So whenever I see this, the second I see someone looking to bring me forwards to get to my chest, when they go to push in your chest, you have to understand that the more your chest is parallel to the floor, the easier it's going to be for your partner to off-balance you, okay? So from here, the second I see my partner go to bridge me in a certain direction, I immediately post the hand far out and wide, and now I bring my chest up and my hips forward like so. What this will do is it'll make it hard for her to create a meaningful connection with her hands to my body. So as she goes to bridge and push me, the hands tend to slip off and she loses the power of the push, okay? Now, depending on where your partner's hands are, I use either an underclasp grip like so, or a V grip outside my partner's elbow. Okay, usually, if the hands are lower, I use a V grip. When she goes to bridge, I V grip and I take the hand by. If the hands are higher, I usually use an underclasp and I take the hand by, okay? Where now from here, my goal is to initially post to stop the bridge and then just guide a hand on by. If my chest is down, my posture is broken, I'm parallel to the floor, she goes to bridge, she gets a strong push, and now it's hard for me to pass it on by. Okay, it's not impossible, but it's difficult. And by the time I go to do that, even if I pass it by, she's already so far scooting out and away, she's gone because my head's so far off center. So I want to keep my head as close to center line as possible. So as she goes to bump me forward, she goes to bridge out to one side. You see how I stay here? Instead of my head coming all the way out over here, it's relatively centered. Okay, of course I'm going to get bridged off to some degree, but it's going to be difficult now for her to start going into escapes. So as she goes to bridge, she goes to put her hands on me. She goes to bridge. We just guide the hand by, like so, and we move to a long hook. Okay? What I don't want is my partner scooting out and away, and now she's gone. You have to understand, your back heel with your left leg, my left leg in this case, will never be as strong as pulling my knee to my chest and scissoring my legs like so. Okay? So, the second your partner goes to bridge and just push you off and hulk you to the side, your goals. One, you want to be as postured as possible so that you're, instead of having your chest parallel to the floor, your floor to ceiling, okay? Two is you want to guide your partner's arm by so that she has no more contact with her hands in your body. And three, we want to create a long hook that's on the side she's bridging to so that she can't knee elbow escape, and then I can either create back exposure or look to put underhooks in. So we're going to be here, we're hand fighting, she goes to bridge me forward, and then as she goes to bridge, we move to a situation like so. So that now from here, we're looking to come in, and we can either expose our partner's arm across the center line, like so, or if she goes to bring everything back down to the floor, we can punch in situations where we have inside bicep ties, and then go in and expose our partner's arm and get to winning situations. Okay? So, what this will look like is we're hand fighting with our partner. She goes to bridge me forward. We move into a situation like so. Okay? Again, I don't really want to teach this because it's just such a terrible escape. that it's just like, why am I even showing this? But there are people who are going to do it, and like ADCC champions do this to escape mount. They just don't have any mount escapes. So I had to show it just to make sure you guys know what to do. Whenever someone just takes their hands on your hips or on your stomach or your chest, and they just push as hard as they can and bridge to one side, always create an angle where first you posture. So the hands tend to glide up towards your head instead of having a strong connection and pushing you off to the side. So the hands slip off as you pass the elbow. You create a long hook. You put a wedge behind your partner's hips. So when she goes to scoot away, I can scissor the legs between her hips between my legs. That makes it very hard for her to get that shrimping motion out to the side once she creates that initial kazushi. All right, so we're here. I don't know if you can tell if this banner in the background has changed. We're in a different studio today because it was like basically a tornado outside and the roof started leaking at the studio that we were at. So it was just like, we tried to film this same clip and it was just like tick, 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 like drops on the ceiling and the water leaking. So it was messing up the audio, so we had to refilm this. All right, so we're in a different place now.
And safe.
And safe, yeah. So we're going to look at lifting elbows, okay? Our partner's escape, like I said, is contingent upon her ability to get elbows inside of our knees and start to go into knee elbow escapes, okay? So the first thing I'm looking to do is get my knees inside my partner's elbows. So we're going to do a simple drill where she has her back on the floor. We're mounted. She has 2 elbows inside my knees, like so, okay? You have to understand your partner only has the ability to keep one of her elbows on the floor at the same time, okay? If her weight is evenly distributed across both shoulders, there's no reason why I can't just lift an elbow off the floor. The way that I do this is by going not at the elbow, but by going at the shoulder. Posting a hand on the floor for base, and then from here I just lean to one side, and I can always take my partner's elbow slightly off the floor by pinching my knee and just dragging her arm up and off the ground. As I do that, I make space for my hand to penetrate down towards the elbow. I catch, and then I just lift and slide my knee forwards inside my partner's elbow and up towards the armpit so that my knee is on the same axis now as her shoulder line, okay? So we can go from side to side, okay? Normally she gets one elbow inside, that's the elbow I'm focusing on. So from here I come in and I lift. Okay, she has 2 elbows inside. If I feel like whatever the case is where I cannot get one elbow lifted, it's because my partner has weight over that elbow. So if she has her weight evenly distributed, I can lift either elbow. But if she favors one side, now I can't lift this elbow up. So it makes one side increasingly difficult to lift the elbow, but one side increasingly easy to lift the elbow. So now just going on the opposite side, I just take the elbow forwards, okay? If my partner starts to bridge to one side, for example, okay? Now I'm never gonna lift this elbow, so I start one elbow, I bring the knee inside. So now I know that she can't start and escape back to this side. If she bridges with an elbow inside, and from here I do nothing, now she can go back in the opposite direction, bridge a second time, and now I'm really off balance, okay? So I focus on one elbow at a time. I come in here, we start playing, I lean to one side, I lift, I catch, I drive an elbow forward. And then I do the same on the opposite side. If I try to do that and she leans dominantly to one side, then I just make a quick switch. So I go here, I make a quick switch, and I lift. So she goes to one side, I'm trying to dig, switch, lift, okay? So we can fight knees to the inside position relative to our partner's elbows, okay? Now, we have to look at a situation where, let's say, we lift one elbow, like so, but our partner starts to knee elbow escape to the opposite side, okay? So she's in here, and she starts to knee elbow escape. This is when we're gonna start going in and start pinning hands down, isolating our partner's wrist, and then using this to go into underhooks and things like that. That's what we're gonna look at in a second, okay? But our first thing always is just to make sure that our knees are inside of our partner's elbows. We use a simple lifting method, okay, where we come through, we expose an elbow, and we lift. In the event that we can't do this, we're going to chain this together with cross wrist gripping, and then we're going to go from there. That's what we're going to look at next, okay? But our basic default is always to go underneath the elbows and just start lifting to get our knees inside of our partner's elbows. All right, so now I'm going to show you something that I've shown on Instagram and here and there in the past. But this is something that if you have it explained to you, it makes so much sense. But until you have someone explain it to you, you would never really think of it. And once you have someone explain it to you, you're like, wow, what an idiot I am for not doing this the whole time. John explained this to me when I was a brown belt, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 4.5 years, and I never thought of this simple idea. And this is using a cross grip system from mount versus a straight wrist grip system. We're going to have a partner down on the floor like so. Okay. What you see when you have a mounted situation, I have two knees inside like I should. What you see when people go to attack is they use a straight wrist grip series. Okay. They try to push their partner's hands down to the floor. When I use straight wrist grips, I'm pushing against my partner's large muscle groups, against their chest and their lat muscle. So to push a hand to the floor is nearly impossible. All right, and the second you do, what happens? The second you do, your partner just gets the hand back. Okay, so a much better way of doing this is by using a cross grip method. Okay, because when you use cross grips in your partner's hands, now you're fighting against your partner's rotator cuff, which is extremely weak compared to your partner's chest and their lats. Okay. Now when I go to push the hand to the floor and she goes to stop me, it's embarrassingly easy to get the hand down to the mat. Whereas if I try to do it like this, it feels like almost impossible. Okay. When I use these cross grips, I always make sure my palms are pointing towards the ceilings. Okay. Why? If I go with a grip like so, where my palm faces towards my partner, and I go to start pushing my partner's hands down and away, she will expose the weakness of my one-on-one. Okay, the weakness of any one-on-one grip is the space between the middle finger and the thumb. Here, okay? When I go to push down in this direction, if she pommels down towards my hips, she can expose that grip and bring everything back and towards her body. Okay, she wants to bring the hand towards the chest. I'm going to bring the hand out and away up over the shoulder. So if I go to push down like so, the weakness of my grip will lead her hand towards her own body. So I make sure my palm points towards the ceiling, where now the weakness of the grip will lead her hand out and away from her body. So when she goes to peel the grip, she aids me in bringing the hand down to the floor. Okay? So we use a cross grip method where she has unlocked hands. Okay, simple drill you can do. She has unlocked hands, and you can do this with your buddies, with your wife on the couch, with your kids who don't even do jiu-jitsu. You can try this with anyone. You can try to push a hand down to the floor like this and have someone resist. It is very difficult to do. But when you go cross wrist, now it's like a joke. Okay? When I go cross grip with cross wrist with these grips, I don't lean forwards and then try to push the hand like so. I straighten my arm like so, and then I just lean my head forward over the shoulder. So that now my head is over my partner's hand. So now there's weight over the hand. So now when she goes to pull that hand back, it's my full body weight against her rotator cuff. Okay? I don't do this. I do this. Where it's a straightened arm with full body weight going over the shoulder and then over the hand. Okay? What you're going to start to find is when you go to start pinning your partner's hands down, they're like, okay, I don't want this to happen. Let me lock my hands. Okay? So I go one, I go to pin, and then she locks her hands. All right? That's fine. From this position, I just go double cross. Okay? Where now from here, we've reached through, and we go with a double cross grip method. Okay? Usually, in general, okay, this will change if your partner starts bridging, but in general, I push towards the side of the bottom hand. Okay? So that from here, when I push, it separates my partner's hands. If I push in this direction, it pushes her top hand into her bottom hand and it reinforces the grip. So in general, I always go towards the side of the bottom hand. Or from here, we just reach in, we go double cross, and now from here, we push a hand down to the floor. If your partner switches hands top and bottom, and we just go across to the other side. Okay. Now, the one exception to this rule is if your partner bridges. If I go to push her down to one side and she gives a big bridge to the other side, then I just push the hand down on the opposite side. Okay. So she needs an initial kazushi in order to get an elbow inside of my leg. All right. So the second I go cross wrist grips, her whole thing is she wants to bridge and off balance me. Whatever side she bridges to, that facilitates a pinning of their arm. So when she goes to bridge to one side, I just lean, I pin a hand down, and now I can go to work. If she fakes the bridge one side and goes to the other, then I just push the other hand down. And you find this incredibly tiring to be on bottom and have just someone just peeling your arms away from your chest the whole time. Okay, and you're trying to bring them back and recover. And then we're going to go into a series of dilemmas from here, which lead to submissions. All right, but everything starts from this initial cross wrist series. We always have palms facing towards the ceiling with an underclasp, where we come in and we grab a one-on-one, a one-on-one. If the hands are open, we go to either side. Boom, straighten arms, boom. If I see my partner bridge to one side or the other, I just go to the same side they're bridging to. If I see my partner lock their hands, I in general go to the bottom hand side. So we go and go double cross and we just push to the bottom hand side. Okay. If I push to the top hand side, that from here pushes into the strength of the grip. Okay. So we in general go 1, 2, and you can go with either hand on top. Doesn't really make a difference. Okay. If your partner sees their hands going to separate and they bridge to the other side to overcorrect, then you just pin across to the opposite side. And now we're ready to work. Okay. But using the cross grip method instead of a straight grip method is infinitely stronger. Okay. And when you see people try to use a straight grip method, it's just completely useless in competition. You see high level black belts just sitting in mount with no clue of what they're doing. Okay. This is what we're going to look at, having a very deliberate approach where the person's back is glued to the floor, their elbows are in good position. How can I incrementally and systematically separate limbs from the body, isolate them, and submit them? And it all starts with having the inside knee position relative to your partner's elbows and using cross wrist to pin hands to the floor or create back exposure provided your partner goes to strip the grip and the elbow drifts across the center line. All right, so a natural question to ask is, what if I'm trying to use a cross grip series or a cross wrist series and a person bridges and gets the elbow inside my knee before I can pin a hand to the floor? Okay, that's an excellent question, and here's how we answer. So let's say, whatever reason, I go cross wrist and my partner scoots an elbow to the inside. Okay, now as she goes to bridge and she has an elbow inside my knee, and now she can start going in a knee elbow escaping. Okay. Whenever I see my partner go to knee elbow escape, notice something. Right now, her hand and her elbow are in one line from hip to head. When she goes to start knee elbow escaping and she goes to start opening my knee in this direction, notice how the hand and the elbow move in unison to open up my knee. So when I go cross wrist and I pin a hand down, now she goes to move to her side to start knee elbow escaping. I switch to a straight wrist grip like so. Okay? So that now from here, I can quickly take my left hand through and catch a one-on-one on my partner's, or two-on-one on my partner's hand like so. What this does is it limits how far my partner can open up my knee. So now when she goes to knee elbow escape, she can still do it, but she can't get the elbow nearly as far out in this direction as she once wanted to. Okay? Now, this is exactly when I use a one knee up method instead of a long hook. Because now I can't swish my legs to the inside so she can start creating ankle exposure provided she can open up my knee enough. Okay, this isn't going to stop your partner from knee elbow escaping this 2-on-1, but it'll delay her for a little bit. Okay, now as she starts to go into the knee elbow escape, I take my knee out of the equation and I step a leg up like so. So that my knee's up and I have a heel connected to her hip. All right. Now she has a choice. She can either go through and she can start stripping the grip and that gives me back exposure, or I can just come through. I can lift my partner at the elbow, and now as I lift, I return the knee back towards the floor, and now we start going in and elevating our partner's arms once again. Okay. So we're going to start with this whole cross grip series, right? But your natural question you should be asking before we just go in and start isolating our partner's arms is, what if we go into a cross wrist and our partner immediately just takes an elbow inside? Okay. Whenever I see that, the second she goes to bridge, yes, I'll be able to get her hand to the floor very easily. But yes, she can also go to knee elbow escape. So the second I see her go to do that, I just pin a hand to the floor like so. Now I make a quick switch to a one-on-one with a straight grip, only once my partner's hand's on the floor. Now I come through and I take a two-on-one. When she goes to start opening up that knee, from here I just step a leg up. And now from here we go underneath the elbow. When she goes to try to stop me from taking that elbow down, it's a pretty easy thing to just move my head off center. And as I do that, I just pull the arm with me. When she goes to pull the arm down, it's the movement of my head that moves her arm up. And now from here, because my elbow's up, or my knee's up inside of her armpit, when she goes to pull that elbow down, it's always exposed to my elbow, so we can easily put our partner's hand up and over the shoulders and over the head. Okay? So, if we just go in and we try to use a cross grip or a cross wrist method, and our partner just instantly bridges to get an elbow inside, we won't be able to go with the long hook because your partner's using more of a shrimping method rather than a big bridging method. Whenever you see a big bridge, we go long hook because your leg can swish her underneath your partner's body. Whenever we see a hard shrimp in the elbow escape, we go one knee up and we glue a heel to our partner's hip, and we use that to expose the elbow once again and get our knee back to the inside position. We're going to have a person down here in bottom mount, and we're going to look to use a cross wrist now to move to a back-headed arm. You have to understand the dilemma that we're playing from here, okay? If you go cross wrist and you pin your partner's arm down like so, there's nothing from stopping you from putting an underhook in place, okay? Because now we switch from a cross wrist to a straight wrist to a two-on-one, and now if your partner doesn't do anything to address this, because my knee is in the inside position, I can always expose my partner's elbow to my own elbow, pick the elbow. Now the elbow is already above the shoulder line. It's a pretty easy thing now to walk the hand up like so. Okay? So your partner has to address this. The second we go to a cross wrist, whether we have the inside knee position or whether she has the inside knee position or the inside elbow position, it doesn't really make a difference. I'll show you from both. I'll show you from when she has the inside elbow position next. But right now we'll go in when we have our preferred position and we have the inside knee position. We go in, we put a hand to the floor. Okay, so we use our cross wrist. We immediately go in and we go to a straight wrist grip like so. Now, we use this to come through and we go in with a two-on-one like so. Your partner's, a common reaction your partner will give you is she'll take the hand across to either try to grab her own hand and pull it back in, or she'll try to fight your hands off and address the grips, and then pull her own hand back in like so. Okay, so these are the two most common options. She either comes across to grab her own hand, or she comes across to grab my hands. Okay, either way, the elbow comes across the center line. All right. Whenever I see this, my goal is to keep the elbow across the center line. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left knee and just wedge it behind my partner's back. This will make it slightly more difficult for your partner to pull the elbow back across the center line. Okay, you notice, put your arm back. Okay, you notice here, this is as tight as my knees can come towards my partner's body. When she turns, it gives me a couple extra inches to wedge my partner in place. Now, I don't concentrate on locking my hands. Okay, the only thing I concentrate on is getting my elbow inside and underneath my partner's elbow and just pinching my two elbows together. The elbows is what controls your partner's head and arm from here, not the hands. Okay, I can lock my hands all I want, but if my elbows are loose and she pulls the elbow back inside, now I've lost everything. So I just come in and I just take the two elbows together. Now when she has to pull the elbow back across, it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And now from here we can either lock our hands, or even better, we can get to a figure four backhanded arm. Okay, and this is our preferred position from here. All right, and once we're in a figure four backhanded arm, we're in a very good spot to go into attacks. Okay, so we come in. We have the inside knee position. We go cross wrist. We feed off to a one-on-one. And now from here, we look to come through and get a two-on-one. This is our default starting position once we pin a hand down to the floor. Okay? Now, if your partner doesn't do anything, which is what we're going to look at later, we just bring an underhook in, and we put the elbow over the shoulders. What happens a lot of times is your partner realizes this is no good, brings the hand through and tries to fight the grips or pull the hand back in place. The second I see this, the determining factor on who's going to win this battle is who wins the battle for elbow position. If I can get my elbow inside and underneath, I win. If I can't, then I lose. So the second I see this, my knee comes in and I wedge her in place ever so slightly more, while simultaneously taking my elbow inside and underneath and just locking my two elbows together like so. And now she can do whatever she wants. When she goes to bring her elbow back across, it's now trapped. And now from here, we can go in and we can lock various forms of back, head, and arms like so. Or even better, we can get to a figure four back, head, and arm. We grab our partner's wrist, grab our own wrist, and now we're ready to go into a variety of attacks from here. Okay, this is a very, very strong dilemma game we're playing here between pinning arms to isolate them over the head or locking a back, head, and arm if the elbow comes across the center line. Okay, the same can be said for if your partner has the inside elbow position. She goes to initially escape, I pin her wrist down, I post, and now from here I come through and I get a 2-on-1. All right. A lot of times what's going to happen from here is your partner will reach through with that hand and try to strip the grip. The second I see this, we just take the elbow into position, and now we're in and we're ready to go. Now the good news is, it doesn't even matter if your partner goes to knee elbow escape and actually puts you in half guard. Because if she does, it doesn't matter. Now I have a situation where, even though she knee elbow escaped and put me back into a half guard, I had so much back exposure that all I had to do was sit, and her half guard now turns into my bottom hook. So it's actually not the best move for her to escape into a half guard anymore. Because now it just gives me a hook, and now it's easy for me to insert the second hook and go into all my attacks from my partner's back. Okay, so if she's down, before I can get a cross wrist, she bridges and gets an elbow inside. Whenever I see this from here, we just come through and we come in. Now, if your partner doesn't bring the elbow through, that's fine. I just lean, and now I use this to start lifting and driving forwards. Okay, if I feel like I'm going to lose the battle for the inside knee position, and my knee starts to drift down towards my partner's legs, and she looks to start trapping me in half guard, then I step a knee up. And now from here I can recover, lift, and put a knee down. In the event that my partner brings the hand across, even if I have a knee up, it doesn't matter. I just come through, and I move into a situation like so. Where now from here, when she goes to bring the elbow back across, it's a very, very difficult thing. I can usually fish for my partner's wrist and come in and get to a back, head, and arm, or a figure four back, head, and arm. Okay, so we can do this depending on how far your partner is into a knee elbow escape. We can do it with a knee down, like so, when she goes to reach across, and we come in and we catch. Or if I feel she's starting the knee elbow escape and I feel like, oh, I'm going to lose it, we just step a leg up. And now we come through and we lock a back, head, and arm, and now we're ready to go into all of our attacks right from here. So we're applying a basic dilemma game between pinning the hands and passing the elbows, just as we spoke about before. Okay. Right now we're working under the assumption that we pin a hand with the cross wrist, we switch to a 1-on-1, then a 2-on-1, and then from there, your partner tries to come across to either grab her own hand to pull it back to center, or fight your hands off to clear the grip and then pull the hand back to center. If she reaches the hand across, you know the elbow is going to come across the center line, and you know you have back exposure. All right, so now let's look at how we can actually take our partners back from the back, head, and arm, or from the figure four back, head, and arm. Okay, she's going to be down and mount. I'm going to get to a figure four back, head, and arm off of this cross wrist, and we'll look at one, if my partner has the ankle trapped in a 3/4 mount like so. Okay, whenever I see this, this is going to become my bottom hook. So the first thing I'm going to look to do is I'm going to slide my left knee, my back knee over here, above my partner's shoulder line, like so. Now, the big mistake everyone makes is they fall to the near hip. So they fall to the left hip and they try to pull someone on top of them, and now you find out your leg gets kind of stuck underneath you. You pull your partner up, and it's an awkward angle, and you feel like everything goes to hell. Okay, so think about one simple thing: falling across the hips from your left hip to your left butt cheek, to your right butt cheek, to your right hip. Okay, so that from here, I just sit from one hip to my left butt cheek, to my right butt cheek, to my right hip. And this makes everything seamless. And now from here, we can easily put our second hook, put a body triangle, whatever we want to do from those positions. Okay? So this time, we get to a figure 4 backhanded arm. She locks a half guard. And from here, I just slide my left knee up past the shoulder line so that from here, I can sit down to my hip. Another big thing that people do is when they go to sit, they do this. And they fall down like so. If you're young and flexible and athletic, this will be fine. But when you get old and stiff and inflexible, you can hurt your knee if you sit like so. So I always make sure, like I don't want to fall like this. And it's like awkward on my leg like that. Okay? So what I always want to make sure of is that my lower half of my leg is parallel to my partner's back. Like so. So now when I sit, it's a seamless transition from a kneeling position to a seated position. And now I just pull my partner across. Left hip, left butt cheek, right hip. And now we're ready to go in, throw our leg over, and we're ready to work. Okay? This is how you do it on high-level guys and have a seamless transition. Okay? If, on the other hand, my partner doesn't have a half guard, so I have my partner mounted, and we're in a situation like so. Whenever I see this, we just simply step our knee up. We slide the knee up, and now, again, it's just the same thing, except for our leg is not trapped anymore, and we have a foot or a heel connected to our partner's hip and stomach. So now we just fall across like so, and now we're in position ready to go. Or now, if you have the ability to, lock a body triangle. If not, we can go posterior mount, or we can put 2 hooks into place. Okay, so basically the same thing, whether we have a half guard, or whether we have, or not a half guard, a 3/4 mount, or a full mounted position. Okay, but going from a backhanded arm or figure 4 backhanded arm into our partner's back in the proper way. Okay, sitting across from one hip to the other hip. Don't try to sag down to a hip and try to pull someone on top of you. It's never going to work like that. All right, so now let's look at moving from a backhanded arm into a front triangle. Okay, so we're going to have a backhanded arm off of this cross wrist. A figure 4 backhand arm off this cross wrist like so. And from here, we're going to look to slide our knee up just as we were taking our partner's back. But instead, this time, we're going to look to go in and start locking a mote senkaku, the front triangle. So from here, I'm going to look to take my left elbow and pull it on top of my own quadricep like so. Okay, this will further connect my partner's upper body to me. Right. What I don't want is her down here, where now I can't expose the side of my partner's neck to bring my leg through, and I start to get stuck in the hands and things like that. So I want to make ample space for my leg to come through this space here. Okay, so I pull my own elbow on top of my leg. Now from here, I'm just going to look to throw my leg through and connect my heel to my own knee. Like so. So that now I can just sit down to the floor. Now it's a pretty easy thing to start falling across so that my right knee comes down towards the floor. So the directionality of force is I'm falling towards my partner's feet. Like so. And now I pull my leg out. Now because there's a wedge behind my partner's head, when she goes to bring the head back to the floor and return to where she was, she can't do it. Okay? And now it's a pretty easy thing for me to come through, fall down towards the floor, and now we can go in and start catching our partner's far arm. Your partner at this point has no choice but to start turning up into you. She can't go back with her back down to the floor. As my partner goes to turn back into me, I just extend my leg with the goal in mind of getting the back of my right knee connected to my partner's neck. So as she goes to scissor her legs, I just shoot my hamstring to my partner's neck, and now we're in a situation where our 2 legs and feet point in the same direction. When she goes to pull out and away from here, it's a very difficult thing because of the back heeling motion with my right leg. Okay? Now, I just go in and I lock a figure of 4. I scoop inside of my partner's leg to create an ample angle. And now from here, I just take my two knees together. I take my two heels to the floor, a back heel, my knees pinch, and from here, we get incredibly strong strangulations with a Mote Senkaku for the win. Okay? So, we come in. We have a figure four back, head, and arm. Instead of taking the back, we're going to go into a Mote Senkaku, the front triangle. So I slide my knee up, and I elevate my partner's head like so. Now from here, I just connect my heel to my own knee. I sit down to my butt, and I fall across towards my partner's feet, like so. From here, we reach through and we catch our partner's elbow. So now she has no choice but to start coming towards me. If she tries to go back where she came from, that wedge behind her head negates that. Now, as she goes to turn and scissor the legs, we just kick through and we connect our hamstring to the side of our partner's neck like so. There are two major problems associated with finishing a front triangle. One is the connection of my hamstring to my partner's neck. Two is the elimination of the shoulder. Okay? Most front triangles cover one of those areas. Where I eliminate the shoulder, you see you can't see your shoulder here, but there's a ton of space between my hamstring and her neck. The way you should be doing a proper front triangle is by scooping the leg, and from here, moving to a situation where I can both eliminate the shoulder and create a strong connection of the back of my knee to the side of my partner's neck. So that now from here, without even locking my legs, I can still get incredibly strong strangulations just because of the connection of my leg to her neck. And now from here, when we lock a full figure of four, back heel and pinch the knees, it's incredibly difficult for your partner to do anything. In addition, because you're not in front of your partner, she can't stack you. If she tries to stack you from here, she pushes her own neck further into the hamstring and actually strangles herself. Okay? So it's very different than a traditional front triangle, Jiu-Jitsu 101, where you're in front of the guy, you're fighting against his body weight, you can't get the shoulder eliminated. Even if you do, there's a big gap between your hamstring and the neck, and you can start pulling the head, and maybe you get it, maybe you don't. All right, this is a much better way of doing it. Okay? So my partner's going to be down, about the position one more time. We make space by pulling my partner's head up like so. We throw the leg through, we fall, we sit down to our hips. We sit down to our hips, and as we do that, we shoot the leg to our partner's neck like so. So that our two legs point in the same direction across my partner's shoulder line. When she goes to posture from here, it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. And now it's the easiest thing in the world to go in, lock a figure of four. If I have to, I can go in and I can hand assist. And now we go in, we lock up, and we get incredibly strong strangulations with a Mote Senkaku, starting from the initial cross wrist to figure four back, head, and arm, or back, head, and arm in general.